When it was first launched, marking Kia's entry into India in 2019, the Seltos was an instant success. And I remember saying after the media drive, and perhaps it was also carried in our drive report, that as a first effort for a new brand in India, getting the product so right was phenomenally great. The Seltos has been getting incremental improvements, but this is the first big cosmetic and features-based upgrade. On aesthetics, it's a bit bolder perhaps. The larger and more defined grille section holds the mantle at the front, and the bumper is completely revised across the trim range, that is, and so are the lights, which are all LEDs. If you remember, it was the Seltos which gave us the sweeping front light bar, which gave it instant recognition on the road. That element has been evolved further, and with the larger grille, it just continues to look striking. Along the side, not much has changed, and the waist and the window lines are pretty much the same, so it's similar in appearance as before. It is the rear which gets a bit of a different look, courtesy mainly of the tail lamp look and the light signature and a new bumper design. The Seltos has grown a bit overall in length, but none of that is a factor of mechanical or platform change. It is purely because of the revised bumpers, so the overhangs have grown a little bit. Despite the design treatment to make it look bolder, the Seltos thankfully still maintains its stance and balance. It's maybe a bit more gimmicky than before, but it definitely catches the eye, and there is no doubt about it. On the inside, the biggest change comes in the form of this large latitudinal glass housing, which hosts 10.25 inches worth of infotainment and instrument modules each. It's a big step aside from the previous Seltos and brings this one up to the current market trend. It offers all sorts of things, the basic connectivity suite of course, there is navigation as well, but it's a bit daft that there is no wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. But there is voice command feature and the brilliant 360-degree camera. That's very good. I'm glad that Kia did not dump crucial and often used functions into the menus and the sub-menus of the screen. The HVAC and media controls are thankfully controlled through physical buttons over here. And down here you also get buttons for the seat ventilation, and there are a couple of USB slots and very useful storage bins. The design of the dashboard is pretty straightforward, and there is nothing obtusely done over here. There is no pouring of unnecessary stuff, and the color palette is very different shades of grey in this GT line that we are driving. In the tech line, the theme is a bit more light and airy because of the contrast dual tone treatment. The upholstery, that is different. I'm not so sure if the seat's basic architecture is different. I think it's the same frame as before, but it seems like they have given this one better definition and foam density as well. But if not that, then the new upholstery really has done wonders here. These are fairly comfortable seats, and for the most part, you should not really have any issue doing long journeys in this car. In the front, it's absolutely great. Lovely reach on the steering wheel, which itself can be adjusted for reach and rake. So with the adjustable seat, getting into a good driving position is a breeze. And these seats are also pretty nice and grippy. Specific to the bench in the back, it's got a nice recline angle, fairly decent thigh support as well, and it's not entirely flat, which is great because the bolstering around the sides, that comes in good to offer decent support. And at the back you get sun blinds, which is a good addition. Space, exactly the same as before. The hard points are the same, the wheelbase is the same, and there is no alteration on the basic platform. At the back, the space is about adequate at best. Fair amount of knee room, good space for the shoulders and elbows as well if you have two people in the back. With three, as with the previous Seltos as well, it's a bit tight in there and I will not recommend it. I'll wrap the interiors with a bit of a peculiar item. The mesh cover over here for the speakers and the tweeters, they have a crumpled look to them. When you enter and you see this for the first time, it's a weird thing to the eyes, as if somebody took a blunt instrument and attacked them. But this look has no acoustic amplification effect. It is purely for style, but I'm not entirely sure if it's really a stylish execution. Anyway, on with the mechanicals and the other crucial feature additions. As I said a while back, there is really no change or update to the chassis in terms of its architecture, but a little strengthening of some important platform members and along the pillars has been done. But that's largely to manage the increased weight and to control the flex due to the massive glass roof running all the way till the back. To drive, the Seltos is pretty much the same as before. The steering feels the same, it's got a linear yet directly connected feel. The front end turns and it grips in much the same way as well. And it's generally a good car to drive and to throw around some open winding roads. The suspension tuning is basically only on the dampers. They're a bit more generous in managing the weight shift and compression, settling the car down in a very nice and natural way. The most important additions in the updated Seltos are the ADAS features, and there is a new 1.5-litre turbo petrol engine, which is the one that we are driving. Let's look at the ADAS suite. This one gets forward collision warning and avoidance, and it can identify cars, pedestrians, cyclists, or things coming on at a junction crossing. And if it senses an impending crash, it is going to apply emergency brakes in full fury. There are 3 assists in the lane driving feature. Lane departure warning, which will give you, of course, a warning if you're veering off from the lane that you're driving in. There is also lane keep assist, which is going to apply counter torque on the steering wheel and move you back in between the lane markings if you, of course, are veering off. And then there is lane follow function that is going to basically stick you alongside the lane markings. There is also cruise control, which adapts to the behavior of the vehicle in front. So if it slows down, you will slow down as well. And if it picks up pace, the Seltos is also going to pick up pace. So it's kind of adaptive that way. There are other features as well which work on blind spot recognition. The car will not only warn you about something coming at you, which is of course hidden in your blind spot, but it is also going to apply brakes to avoid a collision. And then there is collision avoidance for the rear cross traffic scenario as well. And the final part of the updated package is the 1.5-litre turbo petrol engine, of course the one that we are driving. The earlier 1.4 turbo petrol was a fully imported engine. This 1.5 is a locally assembled one, so it gives Kia advantage on price. In its global application, this engine comes with a 48-volt mild hybrid system, which Kia has decided to omit in India. And that's a little strange because it would have given the Seltos a higher ego and more bragging rights, considering that the Grand Vitara and the Urban Cruiser Highrider both come with not just mild but strong hybrid systems. Reaching the minds or influencing the customers with a soft approach to hybridization might have been a good exercise by Kia. But that is of course not the case, because this 1.5 turbo is a simple forced induction IC format power supplier. It produces 160 PS at 5500 RPM and 253 Nm between 1500 and 3500 RPM. It does not really give you the feel of being a 160 horse engine even when you are in sport mode. But that's, I think, because of the gearbox. It is not a bad dual clutch transmission per se. It's very slightly slow on upshifts. But you get this very clear sense that this engine would have felt better with a snappier gearbox. The Seltos in some trims also gets different traction modes. It essentially works off the TCS or traction control system, and when the system senses either of the front wheels losing grip, it applies brake force on that wheel. The system basically works on 3 different traction levels: snow, mud and sand. So depending on the terrain or the condition, the appropriate amount of brake force compensation is going to be affected by the system. Will this allow the Seltos to go off-road? Not by a long shot, but it is a good thing to have when you're in some fields or a bit of a rough rural landscape. The updated Seltos retains almost all of the strong points of the outgoing model. It's built well, it's got a huge features list which is now populated with the additional ADAS items too, and the space is okay, the seats will offer adequate comfort, and it's overall still a very smart looking machine. Maybe a bit overdone in some parts, but really it's not offensive at all. The new 1.5 turbo engine, that's a strong performer in the mid-range. But it's more of a cruiser than a rapid shifter, I think. And that's pretty much down to the DCT gearbox not matching up entirely. And maybe omitting the mild hybrid tech is a missed opportunity for Kia? I don't know. But the main clincher is the price. The Seltos has not climbed several steps in its price bracket. It's more or less similar as before, a few thousands here and there, but it goes between 11 lakh for the base version, which will of course get the footfall that Kia is chasing. And then it rounds off to about 20 lakh for the top variant, which gets all the bells and whistles. It is the mid-spec variants which are quite worthy, and the 16 to 18 lakh market, that just got a very impressive addition, the updated Seltos.